Happy February, everybody. Thank you for joining me for episode number two of 28th, a month in my life with James Simmons. It is a pleasure to be back with you behind the mic and in front of the camera, just sharing some of my thoughts from the month of February. Happy Black History Month. If you haven't watched the first episode, I will put that link in the description of this episode. It's not necessary to watch all of the episodes in order, as it'll just be me discussing some of the things that were coming to my mind for the past 30 days. That's how that works. But, feel free to watch the first episode. It really sets up what these episodes will be like and what is the gist and what is behind 28th, why I decided I wanted to launch this podcast. Topic that I will be talking about is something that over the last 30 days, just lots of different thoughts, lots of different things have come up to really want me to talk a little bit about identity. And, as I've been going through the month in my different areas, whether it be home life, whether it be church, whether it be work, or just me, just sitting and watching TV. Again, this topic has come up over and over and over again, and it just got me to thinking about my journey and finding my identity. Something that I definitely have core values, principles, morals that hold true over an extended period of time. But definitely, my identity is something that I'm always kind of working on to get better, and to really understand what makes me tick, how I navigate the world. And a couple of months ago, last year, as I was doing some work, and I've mentioned time and time again to folks, and I mentioned it in the first episode that I had the honor to co-facilitate a workshop, and it was on faith, race, and justice. And this was a group that I did in a church setting. There were some people that I knew, some people that I did not know, but it definitely gave me an opportunity to look at a lot of history from our country, a lot of current and present day issues that we've been dealing with as far as race relations concerned, justice, violence in the Black community in particular, which I'm talking about. And I looked at a lot of the stuff that we were talking about, and again, as this idea of identity come up, I just kept going back to that. And I remember saying to the group, as we were talking about some history and things of that nature, and some really, really tough stuff, I said to the group that at that point in time of my life, 44 years old, it was very, very exhausting trying to navigate this world on a day-to-day basis as a Black man. And what I meant by that is there's so many different areas that were pulling and tugging at my collar, calling me in this direction of work, calling me in that direction of faith, calling me in this direction of home, calling me in another direction of friend. And it's normal for all of us to be pulled and tugged in lots of different directions. But for me, that was all based off of something different. It was based off of me being pulled in these directions, and my Blackness was at the center of it all. And what I mean by that is, I can be in one setting and Here's a story. For example, I was at a work function, at a training, and I was there early, and I was sitting in my car just waiting, and I was listening to something on the radio, and I was just buying time before I went in, find my seat, get settled for this training. And as I observed, looking out of the window, there was plenty of other people out there as well. Individuals sitting in their cars, standing outside, talking to each other. Um, and I looked up, and what I saw coming towards me was a security guard who had worked at this building, and it actually was Oracle in Redwood Shores, a conference room that we were at, and that was the building that we were at. And the first thing that came to my mind was, I don't feel like being bothered today. I don't feel like being bothered today. And why would I have to feel that way at work? Other people surrounded by me. Um, but that was the initial thought that came to my mind as the security officer was approaching in that direction. The security guard actually walked past me as I was sitting in the car. And I took a sigh of kind of a little exhale. And as soon as I exhaled, would you know that he circled back and asked me, uh, why was I at the building? And I looked at him and I was like, "Excuse me?" And he said, "Are you waiting for somebody?" And I said, "No." And at this point, I was a little agitated because for some reason, I anticipated this to happen, hoping that it didn't come true, but it did. And he just kept questioning me, and I'm like, "Excuse me, is am I doing something wrong by sitting in the parking lot?" And he kind of saw that I had a tone, and that I was right. I wasn't bothering anybody, and I was just sitting in the parking lot, just like everybody else was. And he walked away, and I immediately rolled up my windows, closed the door, and I was upset, upset to the point where I went into the building and I was trying to find this gentleman, and I wanted to ask him why, and that was it. Wasn't going to report him to a supervisor, wasn't going to do all of that. Definitely wasn't going to get into fisticuffs or anything of that nature, but I wanted to ask him, of all of the people that were out there, why did he single me out? I didn't get that opportunity. I wound up taking my seat, and to say the least, I was very unfocused in that training, and it just was a very very bad experience. I would later go back and share that experience with my coworkers in a staff meeting. As we had been doing lots of work around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And, at our place of employment, we usually have an opportunity to be able to speak freely about things. And for some reason, that space had been closed, and noticeably so. But I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about that situation, and to also bring in the fact that we used to have an opportunity to be able to speak with our coworkers about that in the workplace, because of all of the stressors and the traumas and things of that nature that we have to deal with the clientele that we work with. It's just a natural thing that we do. But again, like I said, that opportunity to have those conversations had closed. And I was hoping to get it started again. So I definitely shared that experience. There was a lot of quietness in the room of my coworkers, and that was okay. But I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention that, here in, that was 2020. Those are the things that, I face as a black man, just trying to do the right thing. Um, yeah. Yeah. I wanted to share some other experiences of identity um, that I've run into and that I've had throughout my years. And, I could talk a lot about stuff, when I was younger, but there's a particular point in time that I want to share some experiences that I've had and move forward to present day and kind of tell everyone, where I'm at with this part of my life as I talk about identity and to know who I am. And I want to go back to 1990. I was a freshman in high school back on Eastern Long Island. And, I was so blessed to be able to live in a home that had four generations. My great grandmother was alive, my grandmother, my parents, then my brothers. So four generations in a household close together, living next to each other. So I got an opportunity to share some experiences with my grandmother, my great grandmother, and my great grandmother was born in 1896. She passed away in 1997 at the age of 101. So, in 1990, I was a freshman and I had a haircut, kind of a flat top, buzz on the sides. And I started to let my hair grow. And I wanted to dreadlock it, so I wanted it to lock up and have dreads. So that was what I was doing back in 1990. And it would grow and it would grow. And I remember my grandmother, my great grandmother, in a nice, elderly, sweet voice, son, uh, you're so pretty. Yeah, yeah, she called us pretty and it wasn't handsome, but we knew what she meant. And she said, I'm not sure why, you want to wear your hair like that. We spent so long trying to get away from looking like, and she said, Africans. And I'm a ninth grader and I liked my hair. And, it was what we did back then. It was, just the style. And I never thought about it in that context of that she was presenting it to me as. And I really, really didn't understand what it was. I just thought she didn't like the haircut. But when she said that about looking like Africans, it just struck me. And for me, and even to this day, I've said to myself, and I identify as black. I very rarely use African American. And I would say I ain't never been to Africa in a day of my life. So I'm American. I've been born here in America. That's I'm a black American. That's how I'm going to identify myself as. And I remember as my great grandmother got a little bit older, and I'm moving a little bit in years now. As she approached, her, 99 and 100, that stuck with me. And something else that stuck with me as well is she began to lose her eyesight, and she couldn't see. And I remember what I would always do was take her hand and put it on my head so she can feel my hair. And hopefully that would help her identify who I was. And sure enough, she's like, "Oh, son, it's so good to see you," so on and so forth. And I just thought it was ironic how the very thing that she was against was the thing that a little bit later on, a couple years down the line, would be the thing that she would be able to identify me with. And when she passed away, I wanted something of hers. And of all things, I took from my great grandmother was something that she used every night. and it was her brush. And I've had this brush with me ever since she passed away in 1997. Um, and it's right here in 2021. But it always stuck to me what she said about my hair. And there was other things that stuck with me, as I'm moving forward a little bit with identity is just African. What does that mean? And um, I'm still on that search, that path of what that means. There was times in school or times when people would, ask me, it comes out like this, like, what are you? And I'm like, what do you mean? What am I? Yeah, I'm French. Yeah, I'm German. I'm Irish. What are you, James? I'm like, I'm black. I'm an American. I was born here, and that's what I said. And I said that because I did not know um, anything different than that. And, I've shared this with my wife, who is a native of the Philippines. And that has been very, very helpful, sharing this with her. And we talking about identity because we talked a lot about it prior to having kids, and what that would mean when we brought some lives into this world. Um, and we discussed it. We discussed names. My wife has in her culture that she would carry her mother's maiden name as well as having her father's last name, and that was something that stuck with me. So when we had Tiffany, um, it was no surprise. It was no questions asked that she would hold her mother's maiden name as a second middle name. So she's got four names. She's got her first name, her middle name, her mom's maiden name, and then Simmons. And that's how it goes. Lauren is the same way on their birth certificate. It was really, really important to both of us um, that their heritage, right, would be known. And it definitely was important to me that they would know their heritage and that they would have a piece of that in their name, as well as in their blood. You know, each year at school for both girls, since they've been in kindergarten, they have a Heritage Day. And this is a little cute, but on the flip side, it again goes back to my search and my seeking of more information about that heritage that I come from. But they will dress up in traditional Filipino attire. Beautiful, beautiful dresses. And it's a fun time for us. They get to dress up. Dad gets to take pictures of them in their beautiful dresses and send them to grandparents and uncles, aunties, ninongs, which is godparents. Um, and that's what they've been doing for the last couple years. And then there's like, well, what about you, Dad? And what they know of Dad is that Dad is from New York. So we have a little a joke about it. It's like, yeah, next year you're gonna wear some Timberland boots and a puffy jacket. That's what you're gonna wear because Dad's from New York. Um, but it's cute, but that's going to change. And I owe that to my wife who really listens and hears my heart. And she's helping me so we can help myself and also our kids get a full clarity of who they are in this world. So we're doing some testing, and I'm happy to say, in a couple of weeks, very excited to know exactly a little bit more about my heritage and where I come from, my roots, my foundation, so I can pass that on to my kids, but also so I can have that, and I can know. So I'm really, really, really excited about that. And the next time someone says, well, where are you from? Who are you? What are you? I'll be able to answer that question with confidence. I'll be able to answer that question with some certainty, um, and definitely with some pride, to be able to answer that question. So I'm looking forward to that. And again, I want to thank my wife. Big shout out to her, Charisma, for definitely being in my corner and being on my side, and helping me on that journey. So big stuff there, and identity. Big, big, big stuff. Whew. Take a deep breath. Connected a little bit more. Because again, part of a big part of this is connecting this to day to day stuff that still happens. Be 2 years in July of this year that California passed the Crowns Act, and I'm going back to hair, and because of some of the terminology they use, it's really important to to bring this back to um, identity and culture, uh, ethnicity, and sensitivity, and acceptance, understanding, and a gaining of knowledge, that we're all unique and we're all different. And that doesn't diminish our intelligence, that doesn't diminish our ability to care for one another. It doesn't diminish any of those things. Um, and being in America and having the dominant culture of Europeans and straight hair and things like that. That's the images that are more acceptable. My girls don't look like that. I want them to have every opportunity um, that every other little girl with straight blonde hair, blue eyes would have. I think we all want that for our kids. And it's really sad that, just in July of 2019, here in California, a law was passed that you can't be discriminated. You, you can't be discriminated because of natural hairstyles, and the terminology. Just taking a quick look. Hair against workers and students based on their natural hair. Um, that's a law, you know. Um, and we know from history that we've had to pass lots of different laws um, to help people get rights and freedom and that fight for equality. And you would think that something as simple as hair um, wouldn't even be on the top of the list. And, I mean, 2019 was on the top of the list, but for it to even be on the list at all of something that we have to address, people not getting jobs, people not getting into schools, being able to educate themselves to advance their lives for the better, um, because they have dreadlocks, because they have twists, because they have it in a style of an afro or something of that nature. That's your identity. And, again, I can relate to it. I just shared a story about my grandmother, my great grandmother, who, had her feelings about my hair. And while I didn't really have the opportunity or know to ask her, like, why would you, what's the big deal? It's just hair. I wish I had that understanding back then to ask her that question, because I would have loved to know what her response would have been. But I can only think that she's talking about the struggle that Black people had at that time in her life, and that there was this progression of conforming and assimilating to the ways over here, and leaving those African things back in Africa, because this is how we do it here. But when you leave those things, you leave a part of yourself, and that's a big void. And I know I've been feeling it for a very, very long time. And like I said, it's exhausting. It has been exhausting having to maneuver in this world, in our country, for as long as I have. And I know a lot of that comes from me coming from Jamaica, Queens, inner cities of, in New York, where I would say I came from very segregated places, all black in Queens, where I was from, and then moving to the suburbs of Long Island, where predominantly all white, a lot of it's just my family members really were who I knew that looked like me. And I know a lot of that played on the heaviness of identity, this back and forth in a sense, to be able to make progress or to be accepted where you are. So just to be at a year and a half and having to make laws like that, it's so important for us to bring up this awareness, bring it to folks' attention, that this is something that's important. It might not be to you because you've had that opportunity to, you haven't had to worry about it like we have. So I want my girls to be able to, and my little one, whew, if you see some pictures of her, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And she loves it big and bold. That's her personality, and so happy for her in that regard. So, so yeah, um, we're at the end of the show, and I want to thank you for tuning in and to listening to me. Forward to being back with you guys next month to talk about the next 30 days and what that may bring in the month of March. Again, this is raw, it's uncut, it's unpolished, but it's definitely real. And it's my truth. And I appreciate you tuning in. Thanks.